Hi everybody, Web3 fans. This is another episode of the DAO Envelop podcast. I'm your host, Eugene Crypto MC. Our goal is to educate you about DAO, to explore what's going on into the DAO realm, how DAO works, why do we need DAO at all, how to join DAO, how to create DAO, and so on and so forth. You know that better than me. And please welcome my today's guest. He's an awesome guy. He's Jesse Rademacher. He's the designer, experience designer, brand and footwear consultant, and he is the co-founder of Madeium. And Madeium, guys, is the first ever design DAO aiming to combine Web3 innovations, top design talent from the entire world, and distributed mindsets. His motto is decentralize as much as possible. Jesse, it's such an honor to have you on our podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you all. Thanks for joining us and allowing me to come on this awesome podcast and talk to this community. I really value this community and the ability to move DAOs forward, most importantly, right? So I think a big thing with Madeium here is made is in our name, right? One-stop shop to kind of get anything made from kind of a design and innovation standpoint. But most importantly, what's cool about this podcast is that we're talking to people that already know about DAOs. So we're talking to people, we don't always have to explain basics. So forgive me, sometimes my audience, I do need to explain basics on, and I think we'll probably touch on that a little bit later in the podcast. But our job is to explain really simply what this technology is. And basically, we're trying to scale technology. We're trying to onboard Web3, get people out of Web2 over to Web3 as much as possible. Yeah, I said decentralize as much as possible because sometimes not everything should be decentralized, and sometimes there's progressive decentralization roadmaps to get to decentralization. So what we're really fighting for is a future that's more just, it's more human. It's literally putting people over profits. And we just think that the future is in much safer hands when it's in the hands of a DAO versus kind of a centralized corporation.
Definitely, totally agree with you. So our core values are the same, and that's great. Sounds fantastic. Let's start with your story. You've been a designer a long period, and now you are in the blockchain space. Tell us about your story. How did you get into the blockchain space? What were your main incentives?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you a little bit about my personal story. Sean Rademacher is my brother. He's also co-founder of Madeium. So he's the other arm. And between the two of us, we have close to 40 years of professional design experience. We've been on opposite ends of the spectrum. He's mostly digital. I'm mostly bringing physical product to life. So I got a degree in industrial design, so product design. And when you go to school for that, you're equipped with not how to design one thing or one segment of things in the economy, but you're really equipped with a process. It's a design process that as an industrial designer, I might one day be designing medical equipment, and then a car, and then so on and so forth. So we really learned a process and honed a process over the lifespan of our careers. And I particularly was in the footwear industry, the hype industry. Think like fashion, footwear, accessories, influencer brands, hype brands, and I spent almost a decade. Previously, I had a job before that in the footwear industry, but I spent about a decade most recently at Adidas. And I was the design director of footwear and innovation for a number of categories. So I've worked internally at $17 billion, 60,000 global employee entity. And that's sometimes why we just say decentralize as much as possible, because we're coming from the opposite end of the spectrum here. We're not really like DAO purist from the mindset that like you have to start an organization as a DAO at the very beginning. We think there's really great use cases for doing that, such as like DeFi DAOs and things like that. But what Madeium really built is we're not asking, our community is top level designers, right? These are people that are doing it at every brand that you love, and they're the people behind every product design that you love as well. And so what we're doing is really allowing these people to transfer in from Web 2, where they're working in-house somewhere, to Web 3, where they get to dictate the terms of their creative lives and their professions. And they get to have a little bit more autonomy over the types of projects that they take on, things that can align with their morals and ethics and values, so that they're not just always getting a corporate brief. And so you see, we've been doing it, we've been making companies billions of dollars. And the creative industry, when we felt the pain, Sean and I felt the pain of working within this, what we call a corporate patronage model, where all creativity is really working for a corporation in one form or fashion. And we think that we need to distribute the future, allow creatives to inject other types of values and morals and ethics into the projects that we work on, because naturally that's how we want to, those are our values, but our values are always kind of being squandered within a corporate environment. So really, we're trying to transition people from coder language and DAO. I don't love the term DAO. I know we're all using it now, but maybe we can come up with like a more human version of this, because really it's all just communities. It's just organizing communities. And now you get to provide value back to the community that aligns with their morals and ethics, versus the morals and ethics and pretty much singular value of for-profit entity of the Web 2 space.
Excellent. I'm not a designer at all. I'm a logical thinker, but I have a couple of colleagues, they are designers. And recently I watched your last podcast, and I absolutely loved your formula explaining what's the main problem with utilizing the designer's creativity in such a corporate world. I would call it the Pareto rule, 80-20, everybody knows in business. So please explain, what is the main problem with utilizing creativity in today's corporate world, and how Madeium aims to solve it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really getting at the core of why Madeium exists, right? So we are professional designers. And so when you're a professional designer working at any company in the world, when you go out to lunch with your other design friends, like all you're doing is complaining about how horrible your job is, right? This is not a secret. Creatives do not like working in this context. So much so that we asked, after we left the corporate world, and we call ourselves Web 2 dropouts, right? We dropped out of the Web 2 environment and full steam ahead in the Web 3 space. And we asked over 300, because Sean and I had these personal expressions, these personal feelings of working for nearly 40 years collectively in these types of environments. As a designer, you were taught not to design for ourselves. We always have to design for like an end consumer, and nobody ever gave us the ability to solve our own problems. And I think that that's really the gist of why Madeium exists, is to use the design process back on the design industry. So we've really designed a whole new way of existing as a professional designer in the world. And it looks like decentralization. It looks like autonomy. It looks like design entrepreneurship. And really trying to foster. So what we did is we asked over 300 creatives, what percentage of your day job, what percentage of your creative ability does your day job or your current boss get out of you? And sadly enough, that number, like 99% of creatives said that number tapped out at like 20%. Only 20% of their ability was being utilized in their day job. And that was a systemic issue. That wasn't one company, one boss, one type of design in one country. This was globally, any type of design, any boss, any brand. And so we just kind of did the math and we go, wow, if right now society and humanity is only getting about 20% of the ability of the globe's what we call creative capital, then wow, so we really set up, Madeium hopes to set up this next like 200 to 300 year creative renaissance if we can just start to harness the lost 80% of potential every day.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. So explain us how Madeium works in general, simply, briefly, whom it utilizes, how it works, the business model, if we could say so.
Yeah. So there's four main pillars to what we do. Number one, and most importantly, is the creative community. The creative community is right now permissioned. So we have a progressive decentralization roadmap. And that all these decentralization principles and implementation of these concepts is going to be done in conjunction with this high level group of designers and thinkers and entrepreneurs. And so that's where we get a lot of trust in our community. We have an education program and everything that we're building out to build that pathway to becoming the professional designer. But first and foremost, think that it's a peer-to-peer network. So all the peers in here at this professional level can trust that anybody else within their group is at that professional level, meaning they can do business with them. They can trust that they're going to execute their ideas. That's kind of the big thing that separates an up-and-comer from a professional in our eyes, is a lot of people have really great ideas, but there's only a certain amount of people that can execute their ideas at a high level given today's limitations. And so that's the group that we're focusing on first. And then pillar two of what we built is basically digital and physical infrastructure that we're just surrounding this community with. So think like this community first can work by themselves. They can start new projects based in royalty sharing, no upfront money, right? These are just negotiations between creatives on how to start a project. And this is all kind of like pre-establishing like an official entity, right? You know, once you establish an entity, you're getting into splitting up, you know, stock options and more formal stuff. Here, we're splitting up profit percentages so that if an NFT launches or a product launches, these people are just independent contractors essentially working with each other and getting points, you know, off of what this ends up doing at the end of the sales process. So if you think we've got a community, and then Madeium built over the last 3 years. So Madeium, we've been building for 3 years in secrecy. This is the first month we're kind of talking about this externally. So we've really kind of amassed what we think is that new flow for any idea to get to a consumer. So concept to consumer, all using Web3 tools, all using like DAO principles of distribution, of merit-based pay. If your thing does well on the market, you should get paid like it does well on the market. So you can see we kind of just reorganized and cherry-picked the best parts of the industry. And what that really looks like to us is the sources of creation, the people that can create without any upfront money. So that's designers, innovators, influencers, athletes, YouTubers, right? Just by doing what you do creates value in the world. And then we basically create like a petri dish of innovation where we just go and try to find the world's best innovation tools and just pull them in and surround that community with all these tools. And so that looks like collective bargaining and bulk purchasing and starting to leverage the pool of talent to start unlocking benefits for that group. And then pillar three is multi-blockchain marketplace, so peer community owned, right? So it looks more like LooksRare than it does OpenSea because it's just a DAO community owned marketplace, but that's how these ideas all get straight to market, multi-chain. And then what's really super unique about Madeium is that pillar four is turning all the digital stuff into physical things and experiences in IRL, in real life. So that's where we're really kind of, when we say concept to consumer, we've kind of considered as designers, we always design in digital, physical, and experiential anyway. So these things are just the same to us. Now there's all these great Web3 tools to start to leverage who brings these to market, how they're brought to market, and with what community they're really trying to serve.
By the way, about community, as I have already learned till that moment of my life about DAO, first and foremost, DAO is the community, but not a simple community somewhere in the world. Community strongly united by some core strong ideological community, I would say, super motivated with this idea, then the set of tools to how they organize the distributed work, like tokens and so on, Web3 set of tools. So
yeah, so let me just explain something really quick, because this is our whole kind of worldview right now, and I hopefully I can sum this up really quickly. Web 2, in our eyes, it has there's two main components. One is the tools of Web 2. We know what all the tools of Web 2 are. And then the mindsets that organize all those tools. The mindsets are centralization, right? So that to us is a Web 2 business. That's any corporation of today. Web 3 to us is a set of tools, but it's also a mindset. And so the set of tools, which is all the blockchain, smart contracts, NFTs, all this stuff, we're seeing Web 2 businesses try to adopt Web 3 tools. And so at best, we think that'll get them to Web 2.5. But to really get to pure Web 3, the DAO next to those tools, the DAO organizing how those tools are disseminated to communities, is really Web 3. It's distribution mindsets. And so rather than Web 2 centralization mindsets, just using the tools and only, we don't think they'll ever get to Web 3, because they'll get to Web 2.5. And then to get to Web 3, they're going to have to shut themselves down and distribute the wealth and the decision making out. And we just don't think that. First of all, we don't think they have time to do that, because people are already creating DAOs of that same business purely from the tools and the mindsets of DAO. And that's what we think communities expect. Communities the expectations of people in communities have been pretty rotten when you think about like Web 2 businesses. People don't trust Web 2 businesses. They're not really doing anything for them. Money and wealth and power is consolidating. The Industrial Revolution continues to pollute, like all these things. And so to us, we're just encouraging anybody out there, and that's where we love having these types of conversations with Taoists, is like, just please go make any DAO version of any Web 2 business, and you're going to beat them to the punch, and you're going to be able to do it like with purity of concept, because all you really have to do to run a DAO is, like you said, it's just a community. What does the community want? You just give the community what they want, and usually communities aren't just out for profit. They want to enrich lives and things like that. They start to inject all these other values. So you can just see Web 2 versus Web 3 in our eyes. The core nucleus of how they operate is just so, they can use the same tools, but their mindsets are just so opposite that we think absolutely the future of the world and the expectations of consumers and individuals, or once they know what a DAO is, nobody really knows what a DAO is, right? We're kind of the leaders of the industry on this call, but once they actually start to feel like, wow, I can be a part of this community and I get like dividends back off of my participate, like I'm the owner of the platform, that really, there's no going back. There's no going back to Web 2 once you experience that.
And I love the point about this. Sounds like, it looks like a sort of ridiculous than super centralized structures from the old world, trying to use a Web3 set of tools. So I've invented, in my experience of in Web3, I've invented a simple metaphor. Imagine iceberg swimming on Atlantic Ocean, and this iceberg consists of water, hydrogenium to oxygenium, and imagine steam or steam agent. This is the same water, just hot, 100 degrees Celsius. And when ice is saying we are trying to use steam for our purposes, for be more icer, for be more solid, I am laughing, because steam will, dissolve you, will destroy you, dear ice. And the ice here is the Web two centralized structures, and it's better to create a Web3 set of tools from scratch, from zero, create DAO from scratch. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's really that's kind of the crux of my story and Madeium's existence, is that we beat our heads against walls in the Web 2 environment, and nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to hear about potentially something new, right? Even though my job was innovation, innovation is threatening even internally within these organizations, because if it undermines a dollar that it relies on the old model, they're not willing to institute something new if it means that it's going to hurt some sort of already existing profits. And so, for 4 years, I literally beat my head against a wall, or that probably would have been more comfortable, actually. But we just had to leave, because we just saw that turning that cruise ship in terms of like industry, its weight can be used against it, is basically the way that we saw it. It's like people think these things are infallible or immovable from a permanence perspective, but if it's immobile, then just make something that's mobile, and then all of a sudden that weight can be used against it. So our kind of visual identity of like this move from Web 2 to Web 3 is that like you're going from a cruise ship to like an army of like speedboats, and like, it's more like a swarm kind of effect that that the big centralized entities are really threatened by, and for good reason, because most of them aren't going to make this transition.
Well, why do you think that DAO framework, or DAO set of tools, is perfect for Madeium purposes? And why do you choose DAO framework? And how do you explain for non-crypto people what DAO is? Simple.
Yeah, sure. So really simply, DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. Decentralized, just think it's like for the people, by the people, instead of for a corporation. So just decentralized means it's distributing back to the people. Autonomous, we really just say autonomous. It's kind of a weird word. We don't like these phrases, but the weird word for most people is like, just know it's the tools. It's the Web3 tools that make sure that you can run organizations at a really high level, right? At a really crisp level. And a lot of people think decentralization means disorganization. And that's like the furthest from the truth. Like, I think that DAOs are, if a DAO is done properly, it's way better organized than any corporation of today. DAO, the O of organization. So DAO. So think that it's really just a community that comes together around some sort of shared principles. A basic DAO in our eyes is like a DeFi DAO, where there's a shared wallet and people are just contributing financial capital to that wallet and then deciding what to spend that money on, right? And they could be rallied around like Constitution DAO or Links DAO, right? They're just pooling money. And those organizations, those DAOs are really easy to start as pure DAOs from the beginning, because all it is people dropping money into a wallet. But Madeium is really different, we still haven't come up with all these terms yet for what we've built, but we kind of think of it as almost more like a human capital. Instead of financial capital DAO, we're a human capital DAO, or a creative capital DAO, where we're really just accruing people and their talents. And then, that's our community, are the world's best creatives. We're trying to set up something. We study history, so we thought the Renaissance in the Italian era, 600 years ago, was really the most prolific time in human evolution in terms of creativity and advancement in sciences and math and all that stuff. And we think like it's pretty absurd that we haven't repeated, with all the technologies of today, we haven't repeated an era where we can just harness creativity at that higher percentage. And so that's where we really think that utilizing the tools and the Web3 principles, we can just really start to chart a new trajectory. We call that forking the future, right? We kind of know if we don't do anything, we kind of know what we're going to end up with, more of the same, right? Web2 business wise. And so we really think that there's a way more abundant future, a way brighter future, one that's based in morals and ethics and values and dissemination of wealth and power and equality, like all these great ideals. We finally, Madeium is kind of packaging those ideals, but most importantly, packaging them for a group of professional innovators and doers and thinkers that can actually put those things in action. And so for us, our DAO is a little bit different than most in that it's this human capital DAO. And this is why, to me, like, I ask you not to call me the CEO and call me the co-founder, because the title of CEO doesn't really make sense for a DAO. If anything, it might be closer to a title of like community organizer or something like that, because really that's what a DAO is. It's any community that has a shared value, just coming together, contributing resources to one another, leveraging bulk purchasing, and all of a sudden you have even the purchasing power of any massive billion-dollar global entity. Like we can have the same purchasing power. So startups, individual entrepreneurs could have the same purchasing power in this environment as if they were Nike. And you just see it's just a leveraging of community values. And then this is where it doesn't make sense for me to be a CEO, because ultimately I trust there's a real trust between our community and Madeium, that these are really great high-level thinkers. Most of them are just recommended by people that are already in our network, right? So we're not really looking to expand at a rapid pace. We're really curating. So now everything is permissioned, but we have this decentralization roadmap, progressive decentralization roadmap, to figure out not what Madeium thinks those decisions should be, but it's a really kind of high touch point environment with these high level thinkers and doers. And we're not trying to get like 51-49% like consensus. No, the threshold's like 75%. If 75% of professional designers can't agree that this is a good way to go, then we're not going to institute it.
Okay, so it's not hard to find out that NFTs are widely utilized into the Madeium ecosystem. Explain us please how NFT as a tool is utilized in Madeium ecosystem, and how not to confuse Madeium when looking on your website with another great marketplace. We won't mention them.
Yeah. So think about it this way. Madeium's approach is really unique in that we've been building it for 3 years. Nobody knows about it yet, right? We're just starting to talk, but we've been building it for 3 years purely from the perspective of the creator, of the minter of tokens. And so in parallel, everybody else has kind of been seeing the public angle, what's happening last year with the NFT explosion. DAOs are definitely going to be the buzzword for 2022, right? So under this type of arrangement, in the way that we're thinking, we've been, again, like I said, just trying to solve the creatives problem, the professional creatives problem. And so they don't know about all the tech. Usually we're the translation. Madeium is trying to translate the tech over to use cases. And so that's what we're really good at as designers, is bringing tech and use cases to life for end consumers. So you can see there's just kind of this translation from the DAO purists and the crypto purists right now. And you see that we're trying to bridge that gap over to mass adoption, right? We want to onboard people as much as possible. And so we've kind of built only purely from that perspective. And so we see some things right now that we just really disagree with in the industry, and what a lot of marketplaces are doing. From a creative standpoint, if we're telling creatives, just register your creative IP. The blockchain, we just say the blockchain's a server, and it's like sending an email, fill in some data, attach a file, send it, upload it, and then it's basically a timestamp. It's an immutable timestamp. It's almost like an instant patent for your creation. It's not a legal patent, but you get that it's admissible in court when you're filing your patent. It's admissible in court when somebody tries to steal your IP. You have a time-stamped, immutable proof that you created that thing. So that's really the big use case that we are imploring to people who make IP, not to throw it on Instagram where it could just be stolen and you're giving away your IP. First, just throw it on the blockchain, register it, make an NFT out of it, and you don't even need to sell that NFT. You don't even know what you're going to do with it in the future. But you can see that we really think that an NFT is just a way to sell off the IP or fractionalize the IP. So we think, like in our system, if you're a creative and you own 100% of the IP, just register it, and then we give you like multi-chain capabilities, ways to splice and dice your IP. So you could sell off an NFT that just is for like in-game skins. You could sell off another NFT that's for like movie rights, or another NFT that's for like physical production, right? And so you really, if you're the generator of IP in the industry, we're just trying to say, protect your own IP. And then in the future, whenever you decide what you want to do with it, you can sell it off, right? And so in our eyes, we think that a lot of people are doing some nefarious things with NFTs. A lot of NFTs out there are a joke. They're just speculation vehicles. And in the US, where we're based, we've always stayed on the right side of the Security and Exchange Commission. So we make sure we're not creating securities within our network. And the main way we do that is just by guaranteeing that there's a use case or an application that's ready to go when you sell that NFT, rather than saying, hey, we're going to build out the environment for this NFT to be useful over the next year. That's really, from a Security and Exchange Commission position, that's a security, that's a speculation vehicle. So you can see that, like, as a generator of IP, you don't need to create an NFT that's just a speculation vehicle. By just doing your own creative endeavor, you're already injecting things into that NFT that give it inherent value and can't be considered speculative.
Okay, I'd love to dive more into the problem of connection, quite technical Web3 set of tools realm with design people who are so airy, who think with the right hemisphere of their mind. Is it hard to explain, to involve, to onboard creative people into Madeium, and how many creative people have already joined Madeium at this moment? And are they pretty satisfied? What are the testimonials, of course?
Yeah. So you asked a series of questions there. Let me try to tick those off of the list here.
All about creative people.
Yeah. So again, like right now, Madeium, a lot of people have FOMO, right? Madeium, we do not have FOMO. And we've been building secretively for 3 years because we really think this is the future of the world. It's not a flash in the pan to capitalize on, and this year and then next year nobody's going to want NFTs. We think in the future, we kind of say anything of like decent value should be an NFT, right? So like maybe not a t-shirt, just because of like gas fees and all that stuff and environmental impacts. Like don't do little shitty kind of NFTs like that. Like NFTs in our eyes are meant to manage IP, authenticate product, do all these different things, right? So in our system, what's super unique is that whether it's a group of peers starting a project, or these designers obviously can take on clients. It's a two-sided kind of marketplace from that perspective. But most of our clients are like athletes, influencers, YouTubers. They're people that already have a marketing base, and they don't really know. They already have kind of like a brand identity, but they don't know how to really make it into a brand. And so that's where you can see working with the world's best. But they can come in and they can just make profit sharing agreements. They might not even need upfront cash. They can do all their design work. And through Madeium, we have kind of like the Slack of design, right? For managing design projects. So there's legal templates, there's automatic pay. Creatives hate invoicing people and paying, like getting paid net 60 after they've done all this work. So we're like, yeah, a design entrepreneur needs to know they're going to get paid on the spot when they complete the work. We'll keep the card on file from the, from the client. And so you can see we've just been building leverage. Every point that a designer told us they dislike about the industry, we've gone and tried to create a new tool for, or create a new leverage point. So NFTs are really just a piece. Blockchain, NFTs, and all the tech is just a piece. What we've also built is like free legal templates, automatic pay, where you can invoice, these creative workspaces, a two-sided marketplace where people can come together and negotiate in profit percentages instead of upfront cash. I mean, you can do upfront cash too, but we give choices. And so we think this is kind of like a choose your own adventure to the design industry. And so then when you get into the blockchain space and the NFT space, we're again tech agnostic. We think different chains are useful for different things. Like I said, when on Ethereum, if I mint a coin on like super rare and the buyer transfers it to Rareable, it can sever my smart contract. It severs my royalties as the creator and the minter of that token. And there's some stuff like that that people aren't talking about because that system wasn't really built purely from the perspective of a creative. They gave the rights to the buyer to take it and sell it elsewhere and sever it and discontinue. And so if you're in our industry, we're seriously managing IP, trademarks, patents, like all those things. And so in our eyes, you can't really do that purely on Ethereum, right? And so there's other blockchains that are maybe even more privatized, or not privatized, but more permissioned, like Hyperledger. Hyperledger is kind of more the industrial grade for any business to kind of get behind. So you see, we think the future looks like an array of tools, an array of blockchains, like it doesn't look like consolidation. It looks like amplification. And then ultimately, supply and demand will figure out who's creating the most value in any given sector. And then people will probably gravitate towards that. So we're thinking if you can set up this infrastructure in a whole new way, it creates new macroeconomics because it changes the flow of money to a very, very significant degree. But over time, there's still things like supply and demand that, kind of rule free market economics and being able to ultimately provide value back for that community. But now, instead of a Web2 business only providing profits back to their community, like now we're able to provide all kinds of other kind of humanistic qualities.
Well, you've said that you are dealing with different blockchains and blockchain agnostic, right? Is it correct to say that Madeium is the cross-chain or multi-chain solution, because the Envelop is the multi-chain solution to, and what specific blockchains do you deal with?
What specific ones do we deal with? Yeah, right now, so
right?
Yeah, so think that we're adding them. We're adding, so right now we are Polygon, Ethereum, Hyperledger, Algorand, and then looking at like Solana, Tezos, so that's where like we're just going to continue to add them, because again, if it's a great tool in its own unique way, it doesn't need to be a one-stop shop. Like you see that we think that providing an array of tools to the creative community and let them decide which is the best, right, in terms for their use case. And so here, when people come and they mint a token or an NFT collection, they can mint it on different blockchains, right? They could mint just one token here, one token there, one token there, depending on what rights are attached to it, right? Like Ethereum's great for like in-game skins, but like I said, great for primary sales, you can't really rely on secondary royalties. So I wouldn't really want to manage my patent on Ethereum, because ultimately, how can I trust, like if the licensee can separate the royalties from the licensor, you would never want to mint that token, right? And so we really see that our job is really, again, not necessarily on the code side, not necessarily on the developer software side, but figuring out what those coders and those developers built, and how, like, what are the negatives and positives of what they built in terms of a creative. And so that's kind of like the vetting process that we go through with blockchains, is to figure out, like, oh, no, so we just try to provide information, education, and knowledge to the creative community. And so say, hey, this blockchain is good for this, watch out, it's not good for that. And just kind of give them a set of like really quick facts whenever they're going to mint a token, right? Just all transparent. We just want everything to be transparent. And so now, to get back to your original question about onboarding creatives into this space, it is tough. It is tough. We're changing so much of their reference point that humans, we all react with fear, usually, if it's something we don't know or don't understand, or it's new and we're saying it's going to take over the world, and yet they're like, how is this going to change my ability to put food on the table for my kids, right? So I think that there's an onboarding process, right, that we have to do in the DAO space. It's great to have those high level conversations, and we need to have those, in terms of like the innovators within the DAO space to really assume a leadership mantle collectively, right, to show the shift. But we also have to make it feel warm and fuzzy. Like, we just need to start showing people what it can do for their lives. And so that's really what you're going to start seeing here with Madeium over these next couple months, is that right now we've had to have these kinds of conversations where we're talking in theory, and we're talking about how we built the multi-blockchain ecosystem and all this stuff. But I'm a designer. Like, I'm not a salesman, I'm not a developer, I'm a designer. So ultimately, we are about to start showing the use cases for the system that we built. So all of a sudden, these won't be theory-based. You'll start seeing real applications of top creatives coming together in profit sharing, launching NFTs that are digital, that are all 3D and 3D animations, but also we plug those NFTs into manufacturing on demand and 3D printing and like AR, VR, machine, all these technologies of AI, machine learning, computational design, all these great things for the future. We're plugging those in to kind of the digital side of Web3. Most people are really building in Web3 on the digital side. So we've done that. But what makes us really unique is, my team scaled 3D printing for Adidas to over 1 million pairs a year. So we don't need Adidas anymore. And we don't need their partners, and we have our own. And the way that this works is that Madeium's not bringing those 3D printed shoes. Right now we can do about 1,500 pairs a day, and we're scaling to 5,000 pairs a day. So you can see that, like, we're not into doing innovation just in like an incubation environment, but we're really looking to scale these things and start to reconfigure global supply chains and the flow of macroeconomics. Think that in our eyes, like, Amazon has all these warehouses of product waiting to be sold. Like, that's not good from a sustainability point. Like, you're going and producing all this product and you don't even know if you can sell it yet, versus here in our environment, everything's basically pre-sold and then made on demand. So rather than Amazon fulfillment centers with product made waiting to be sold. Ours is the raw materials and some of the manufacturing processes to make those things on demand. And we're trying to distribute even that manufacturing infrastructure across the globe.
How large is Madeium community? What sort of tools do you prefer to use to community management? And what are the life hacks, for example, for growing community? Because community is the crucial point of every crypto project. And this is the huge pain of every crypto project. I know it from the business side. So how to manage crypto successfully, manage a grow community of the Web3 project, I would say in general. The tips and life hacks from Jesse Rademacher.
Yeah, life hacks from, ooh, that's a good one. I like that one. Maybe that's its own podcast. Life hacks by Jesse Rademacher. Okay, so let's see. First and foremost, what we look to impress on the current design industry and the current hype industry is that you can do it yourself now. You get to own your own brand. You don't have to be the face of any Web2 business if you just go create your own business. And so think that like the life hack that I learned here that I'm really employing is that I've built, at Adidas, after a decade I built brand identities for athletes and influencers and rappers, right? So I don't like to throw around names, but I've built product and brands and stuff for people like Kanye and Pharrell and James Harden and Damian Lillard and Spida Mitchell, but you see that I was always building these athletes, their own brand under the umbrella of the Web2 business. So really what we're doing now is just going, hey, we'll build you your own brand and you own it. And all of a sudden, in the industry that I was previously still in from a different perspective, but in the shoe game, an athlete gets a 5% royalty on any shoe with their name on it, 5%. And so in our case, we're going, no, if you just start your own brand, yeah, we can make you the shoes. Madeium isn't making shoes with our logo on it. We're just reserving the capacity to disseminate to micro brands, if you will. And that's where you start to get bulk purchasing and leverage. And so really the hack here is that top level thinkers and innovators don't need the centralized Web2 entities anymore. Because if you think about like Nike, they're really just a shoe manufacturer that makes all their money on the backs of designers and influencers. And here with Madeium, designers and influencers can do it directly together, same caliber of designers, same caliber of influencers. But instead of Madeium being like a for-profit trying to be a $50 billion entity like Nike, we're set up essentially to not extract profits out of our system. We have no fiduciary responsibility to anybody. We have not taken on any money to date. That means that all the money that Madeium generates cyclically, our logo is the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. So you think about that financially. What happens as a financial flywheel? What happens when network effects and exponential growth start to take effect if you're not taking money out of the system and disseminating it on the stock market? And you start to see that right now, to your question, our everybody in our group is pretty small. We've got about 250 top level like designers, right? So those aren't just normal people signing up. These are real professionals that have a lot of accolades. And we're not trying to expand that too fast right now. It's just kind of word of mouth recommendations and stuff like that. Because what we're trying to do is provide a really good experience to these people of working in Web3 and working in this way. Give them something to feel, right? And we don't think we can service 2,000 top creatives at that level right now, right? So you see that it kind of behooves us to kind of incubate this group and make sure that the services we provide are actually useful. We basically built Madeium by just asking the community what they want. And so we take our marching orders. They say, I need a tool for like VR visualization. Cool. Let's find one. Let's pull one in, right? I need an AI and data analytics partner. Okay, cool. Let's find one and pull it in, right? So you kind of see that remaining tech agnostic, we literally are just trying to, because Web2 businesses, they like to create exclusive agreements, right, between their partners. And that's cool because that entity creating an exclusive agreement with, say, like a 3D printer, well, that's great. They lock out that 3D printer from working with anybody else. But guess what? That entity also locks out their ability to work with any other 3D printer in the world. And so that's where we think we're so much more open source to go, yeah, you guys keep building your castles and try to like only have your resources within that castle and everybody else is a threat to your castle, because you're really just giving us like 99.9% of the innovation in the world to start kind of collectively bringing to the community. And so we just see there's just so many, whether you're an influencer creating your own brand, we think like Web3 10x's any business overnight, because we've cut out all the middle people. The people that are not creating value in this flow, they're not there anymore. And so all of a sudden, all those profits get to be redistributed back to the people that are creating value in that system. And all of a sudden, an athlete that might be getting 5% royalty on a product with their name on it, we're saying, no, you're the majority owner. That starts at 51% and goes north from there. That's 10xing your business. Your business could be 1/10 the size of what Nike could sell. And even if you own 51%, you're 10xing your business, or your business could be 10 times smaller and you make the same amount of money. So that's the cool thing about Web3, is that you go from always having to scale every idea like for the masses. And we think Web3 and DAOs allow you to kind of zoom back in on like niches and communities that might be underserviced because they don't fall into the millions of people over here. And so DAOs can really start to micro target their communities. And you don't have to scale it the same way a for-profit business does. I mean, their operating margins are like 15% at best. And here we are doing the same thing at operating margins that are like over 85%.
What are the Madeium plans for 2022? Are you hiring? And if yes, whom do you need as a team member?
So the way that we're set up as a DAO is that we don't hire. So we get into partnerships and strategic agreements. We incentivize people to create value within our community because they're going to get paid off of the value they kind of create for the community, right? So rather than what can you do for Madeium, it's kind of a question of what can you do for Madeium's community. And people can come in, and even if you're like a marketer or an NFT strategist, right? Like you could be pulled into a project with like an all-star NBA player and an all-star designer, and maybe you're getting like 5% of like that NFT collection or that brand or whatever that is, because you're doing project management or you're doing, NFT strategy. And so you see that literally we are trying to move beyond, we always think that like Web2 businesses, they're always like transactional relationships. I'll do this for you and you do this for me, pay me money, right? And we think that those are really kind of just surface level relationships. And what we're trying to do with Web3 is to just even build stronger relationships between the people that are working together. And so if you pay me as a designer $10,000 to do a job, well, the time, like I have hours budgeted to that, and the time I hit my hours, I got to move on to the next project, or else I'm losing money to continue to work on your project. And so creativity doesn't really work in like a fee per hour type of environment. It can, for smaller projects, but what we're trying to do is to put those people that might have been in a transactional relationship and go, no, now you guys can work together long term, and everybody's committed all the way to the success of that project in market as if their pay depends on it, because their pay depends on it, right? So now you're like building teams where you don't need upfront capital to hire people. And so you see that we're just starting to organize, rather than Web 2, where they're organizing all this like talent and creative capital in an employer versus employer kind of context, like the competition that is capitalism. We think that Web3, the big shift that we're doing is we're just organizing peer to peer, just on individual levels. And things can happen so much quicker and get to rapid innovation when we're actually working peer to peer, because people can make decisions a lot quicker than entities can. And so that's where we really see the advantage of Web3 and DAOs being able to really carve out this future space before any Web2 business can, because first of all, they're so ingrained in the old methodologies and in just all their finances, all their legal contracts. Like they're so contractually tied to Web2 that it's going to take a long time for them to really start adopting the principles of Web3. And therein lies the beautiful opportunity that this community has to go and DAO any for-profit business and do it through the lens of the community. And we think even with $0, you've got a significant leg up on any Web2 business.
Now, until this moment of our podcast, you've successfully sold the Web3 for any our listener. And it is also often asked how to join Web3. Why should we join at all? Well, the first entry point. And my answer is start to learn. And I would love to ask you how to learn about Web3. Would you recommend? What are your favorite learning resources about Web3?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that one. So as an innovator, you always have to teach. You have to teach people how to use your innovation, right? Like you can't just assume. So we take a very strong perspective on education and the responsibility to allow anybody in the world access to this type of education. So we've got some great partnerships. First of all, you know, if you're a creative and you want to hear a little bit more about Madeium, look up, go to our YouTube channel, just look up Madeium, M-A-D-E, like you get stuff made, and then I-U-M. And we are going to continue to put up educational content and try to explain big shifts from Web 2 to Web 3, but usually from the like speaking to designers, right? So try to decode all the language and all the jargon and explain it really simply. And I do, you know, whiteboard sessions and drawings to try to give visuals to some of this stuff too. So you can check us out there. But then also we've got some great partners like the Global Blockchain Initiative and the Borderless Blockchain Alliance that are doing some really fabulous work. Global Blockchain Initiative just launched their first education program, I think a week and a half ago or something. And they have like 4,000 students in over 125 countries. And it's free education and it's free courses to learn blockchain, to learn all about this Web3 space. So hit up the GBI, Global Blockchain Initiative. Some really great people there. That's Ben Balderati that runs the Dowstronaut podcast. He's on the executive board of Global Blockchain Initiative with some other really great people. But like you said, the interesting thing is that there's no correct way or no wrong way to transition from Web 2 to Web 3. You just have to be curious. I guess that's the number one thing, is you've got to be curious. And if you're a curious mind, there's all like just go on YouTube and start typing in terms of typing like progressive decentralization or like whatever these terms are. Just start looking them up and being curious, because nobody, like hiring, we don't really hire, we accrue talent. But the way we do that is like you can't look at somebody's LinkedIn and go, oh yeah, they would be right for Web3, because everybody to date has Web2 experience. And so it's not a detriment if you're not in the space yet. We are all transitioning from Web2 to Web3. So don't get FOMO. Don't think that the space is too big for you. It is the future of the world. So then there and for, you should equip yourself. And you don't have to be scared of this space. This space is way more human. It's way more beautiful. The people that are creating DAOs in the world right now, like you said at the beginning of this call, is there's one thing that unites us, and it's this vision that the future can be more humanistic, that it can be more distributed, that it can be more about abundance than locking down resources for the few. And that's my hope for the future. That's why Madeium is built, is to really try to carve out a public future rather than a corporate future. So we want to, the reason we accrue all these tools is so that anybody can kind of get access to them, not just the people within those corporate, within the corporate castles.
If somebody asks me who is Jesse Rademacher, first I will say he is the brilliant Web3 teacher and motivator for talented, creative people. And the second point, he's the co-founder of Madeium, excellent guy. It's been extremely explanatory, extremely interesting podcast for all the designers. You are a brilliant speaker. I really enjoyed to talk to you, Jesse. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching and listening. Please like, subscribe, share. All the links for Madeium resources are in the description below. Join the DAO Envelop, the Telegram channel, subscribe on our YouTube channels, and join DAO, join Web3. Web3 is here. It is the big disruptor of the big centralized Web2 realm. And Jesse has explained to you how will it be going on inevitable. Thank you very much for watching and listening. This has been a DAO Envelop podcast. Jesse Rademacher, the founder of Madeium, and Eugene Crypto MC, the media host of DAO Envelop. With you, thank you, and see you on the next episodes. Bye-bye.